There we go. Thanks, Jennifer. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is 10:02. Thank you all for being here on this lovely fall day. We will go ahead and get started. And again, a reminder to sign in online. Jennifer's put a link to the chat, or a link to the sign in, in the chat. And so please click on that and sign in so we have proper attendance. And if we're ready to move along, I know I saw Tracy sign in. Tracy, if you're ready to do the system performance reports, that would be great.
Sure. Morning, everybody. All right, this is going to be our September data. We did have an increased spike there towards the end of September. This particular chart is just showing us continuing to ping the nodes. The null one is just we're getting a busy answer when we attempt to do that. So this is all about network performance. So our system will keep pinging until it reaches the server, and that's what had happened on that day. The rest of the charts, looking over these this morning, I think all fell within the tariff requirements. The voice quality, the MOS by PSAP, again, we want to see numbers above 4, and we do see that across all the PSAPs. Looking down, same information, but it's the ECMC route. Again, very pretty numbers there. We like to see a 4 and above, and we see that throughout the month of September. The next one is our packet loss percentage, less than or equal to that 0.5%. A lot of up and downs on this one. I'm showing you both Denver and Miami. So there wasn't anything alarming on that one. And then our last graph here for jitter, just a quick reminder to everyone. I know we're all aware, but the graph is measured in microseconds versus milliseconds, just because it wouldn't show up on the graph at all. And again, everything here is where we would expect it to be for the month of September.
Okay, Tracy, a real quick question just from last month.
Yeah.
For the packet loss percentage by ECMC route, there were spikes on August 5th and August 26th. And you said you had a question out to the NOC manager to provide information on those. Do you have a follow-up on that?
I just have back from our NOC manager that they didn't see anything specific showing up on our side. So Carl is our manager. He was going to escalate that back to see what the issue might have been, but there weren't any alarms or flags on our end. I did not hear back from him, any additional information, but I will ask today.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Were we done with the report?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's look through these. So on that top one, I do, let me pull up my sheet too, because I made a couple edits for today. Let me find it real quick, sorry. For that top one, it's a situation I did follow up where at the time it happens, we had asked the PSAPs to let us know, what TN they're seeing on that. I did check with Intrado, and your ring no answer timers, a couple of them that I was asked to look at, they are set for 60 and it goes twice. So we are not seeing anything on our end that would have those calls being routed to the alternate PSAP without even ringing, right? I think this is one where you guys had said that you were in communication with your alternate PSAP or your alternate route, and you guys weren't busy at the time these calls came through, so nobody could understand why they were moving in that direction. Really, without having a real-time call log and a ticket opened, we don't have anything to send over to Intrado or to our NOC to see what was happening. So the ask was, when it happens, if you could either send it to me if you want to send an email or open a ticket in case I'm not available. It's something that we need to investigate real time rather than trying to go back to the previous month and see what might have happened on a certain date. they didn't see any glaring alarms in the system or anything. But again, it'd be a lot easier if you had it happen today to ask them about it today or tomorrow.
All right, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Alex out of Montrose. That was us on that one with Delta. We actually had a new occurrence of it happen on October 3rd, and I sent it out within a couple days of that in email. I CC'd you, Tracy, and opened a ticket with Lumini 911, as well as opened a DR with Intrado. There was a Lumen rep that replied back to Intrado, and that got relayed to me, but it didn't really answer the questions that we had there. It was just saying they weren't sure. They didn't have any records of that number calling. And that's kind of the issue we're wondering is why is Delta not seeing some of these calls ring in when Intrado's system in the call routing records show it, at least that I'm looking up, and I documented and provided those in the email. It shows up as ringing in to Delta, but they're not hearing it on the floor at all.
Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of irksome that we can see these call data in Intrado's web portal, right, that we access, but Intrado says they don't see the call, but we can see it in their own data system.
Okay, and I'm not sure if he'll have the information right offhand, but I know, excuse me, guys, Andrew's on the call from Lumen. Andrew, usually when there's tickets open, they at least come to your attention. Are you familiar with this one?
I mean, I'm not. I'd have to
Look, we can look it up.
go back and look at it specifically.
Okay, and Alex, you said it was on October 3rd?
Yeah,
Yeah.
October 3rd is when that happened, and I sent emails. I CC'd you. I didn't CC Andrew on it, but I can forward that to him as well, if that's helpful.
Yes, please.
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Chris with Delta. I've been working with Alex on this. Delta County also opened a ticket. We were told that they were joining it with West Coast ticket, and I believe I've sent stuff to you, Andrew, and Jeff Winkleman, and just kind of get a black hole and no response. And this seems to be voice over IP phone based, and Alex can see the data on West Coast that it hits our system and then rings back. But like he said, we have it never rings into our center, and it does not show us ever hitting our equipment, the Intrado. So we'd like to get to the bottom of this, why voice over IP phones bypass us completely and go to the Wesco.
Yeah, in this particular instance too, Wesco's attempts to transfer it back led to it not ringing on the floor there, getting transferred back, and a second dispatcher at Wesco answered. So it was taking up multiple dispatchers for a Delta area call that I believe ultimately ended up with Delta's PSAP getting notified, and they manually called back the number because they couldn't get this call handed to them through star code or any other way. And I believe the last time we had this and opened a Lumen ticket, they just called and tested star coding and saw that it was working and said it's fine. But specifically with these VoIP calls, they're not ringing into Delta that they can see. They can't be transferred to Delta. And there's multiple of these. It's somewhat intermittent. I don't know if it's affecting all VoIP calls to Delta. I don't know how many they get, but it seems to be a pretty persistent issue. So we'd love to get some response to that.
Do we have a way to reproduce that call out of that area? I'm just thinking if we tried to do some live testing with the different within Intrado and Lumen, is there someone that we know the issues happened with the type of phone they're calling from that could do test calls?
I've documented all the numbers that have happened this way that we've seen, so we could attempt to call those people and see if they'd be willing to call back if that's a test option, or other VoIP phones in Delta. Maybe Chris knows with the county or other Sierra's got her hand up too. She's the PSAP director there.
And the strange thing is that they're mostly landlines that do this as well.
So landlines and VoIP?
I'm not sure about the voice, but I do know that at least the one that happened on October, it was an 874 number.
We're working to get access to ECATs and trying to identify how many voice over IP calls we get and the providers. I don't know if this is Elevate or Charter, or there was one a couple months ago that was a Charter that I can't say which, if it's always one provider or any. There's citizens, so like Alex said, we'd have to call them and see if they'd be willing to participate in the test.
Okay, and who's here for Lake County? You can go ahead.
I was just talking to Jennifer this morning that I got an email from Cinch, previously Intelliquent. I think they're the provider for the alley to Ventrado for VoIP phones. I got an email that they were having outages. So I don't know if that's relevant, but I have that Cinch email if anybody wants me to forward that.
That would be.
Yeah,
It doesn't have
Yeah.
any other contact information other than the email.
I think I got the same email this morning, but if you don't mind forwarding that, sending that to Andrew, that
Okay.
would be great.
I think
Yeah.
Cinch is a alley servicing provider for some of the phone companies, but so are Intrado and Comtech. It could be a factor for sure.
Thanks, Matt. Daryl, you've had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hadn't put two and two together with that, but I did get the notification from Cinch this morning, and if they were having difficulty, because they are a VPC, if they're having difficulty locating their VoIP customers, there might be an effect there, but Andrew will know better than me. Jennifer is still multitasking, but she wanted me to ask if these calls are coming in on Rapid SOS. Does anybody know if the calls are showing up in Rapid SOS as well as presenting at the PSAP?
As far as I know, Delta had no, I mean, Sierra can chime in if they have Rapid and they saw any, but Wesco was getting these as alternate route because it shows the primary route attempts into Delta that they're not hearing before the alternate route attempts into Wesco. And Amber, do you know if they saw these in Rapid?
No, it's texting you.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm not sure if they'll show in Rapid to Wesco if they're a Delta area call. I don't know if how that works exactly.
So Chris, Alex, and Amber, how long has this been going on for us that we've been struggling to get action from CenturyLink and Intrado?
Initially, the first calls I have documented of these VoIP calls that were ringing into Delta and them not hearing was in June.
Okay.
And in the most recent ones in September and October, the ones where it was really nailed down that, hey, they're definitely not hearing these ring in. So prior to that, it was kind of unknown what the cause was or anything like that. And we didn't really escalate it a lot, but the last couple have been escalated a lot, but no response.
Thank you, Kathy. I saw your note.
Yep.
Sometimes Andrew's on his phone too, so multitasking like everyone else.
Yeah, that's okay. I
How many
figured.
devices can I join at the same time? Well, I had a quick follow-up question, and are the first two items the same then? Because we have that line item called that it was specific for Pueblo. Are they one and the same, or are these two different issues? And I know Andrew was looking at this one too, so.
I'm not familiar with the Pueblo one. if it's something separate. So
I think it was a routing problem, but I can't recall if it was, did it like route to the alternate PSAP like it should, but it wasn't ringing at the.
Yeah, that one, the our 911 center said that they saw it. It was sent to the PSAP. It timed out, and then it was sent to the backup like it should have.
Okay,
So that doesn't sound like, you know,
it's a
this.
different deal, yeah.
Andrew, just real quick for clarification on that, is that the one where it was a specific phone number that was happening with? Because I know we had it reported, and I thought it was Pueblo that said they had one VoIP phone that would get rerouted, and then they would immediately get a notification about a problem with calls being received from either Entrado or Lumen. And
I don't remember that being a specific phone number. It was just something that happened once, and you know, the county had asked if, you know, there was any more information that we could get, and you know, if we saw the same thing happening. It was just like the PSAP was timed out, but there were, you know, that was the odd thing was there were people there. They had other calls going, but this one call was sent to the backup. They tried to send it back, and it kind of did the same thing. But from the Lumen perspective, it looked like, you know, the same thing. It timed out, like the PSAP wasn't able to answer it, so then it went to the backup.
okay. I know we had that conversation though. I'm gonna have to look back in my report and find that and figure out what the difference was. Lake County had their hand up first. Go ahead. If you're talking, you're muted.
Sorry. The
Okay.
email also mentioned that the calls were being routed to the emergency call relay center, which, talking with Jennifer this morning, she said that it goes to Entrado and they have to get more information and they have to try to route it to the correct place.
Yeah, so this is Rich Johnston, if I can comment on that. If calls are going through the Entrado ECRC, then that typically means that there's a error or something happening on the mobility side of the call. So for VoIP, for instance, if it's a Entrado managed VoIP customer, the call comes into the Entrado VoIP side of the house. They do some routing lookups. They try to send it out. It's usually successful. If it's not, then that call may go to the ECRC. And the ECRC answers that. I think you know what the ECRC is. It's our call center. At Entrado, they talk to the caller and then they send the call to the PSAP via the PSTN typically. So that all happens before it gets into the A911, Lumen Entrado supported 911 system for the state of Colorado. So if calls are being routed through the ECRC, then it's not even getting to our next gen 911 system.
All right, thanks, Rich. Daryl, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to point out the outage notification this morning from Cinch was for an outage this morning. So I don't know, since this has been going on for months, the outage this morning might have had some effect, but that's probably not the underlying explanation of what's happening here.
All right, thanks, Daryl. Okay, so it sounds like we got some things to figure out with that. Something is definitely going on. Tracy, do you have anything else on that?
No, I'll circle back with Andrew so we can keep looking at it and we'll keep them separate.
Well, and yeah, it would probably, from my perspective, my initial thought is to, for me to reach out to Chris and team and set up, a separate call to go over this and, make sure that we're capturing everything that they're saying. I know on this call stuff kind of bleeds over a little bit, but if we work with Delta, Wesco, the NOC, and Intrado, I'm hoping we can get some direction to chase, make sure that we completely understand the issue and begin to chase that, down specifically. And I can speak with the local techs in that area too, and see if they've got any type of VoIP phone up there, that we could possibly use. Depending on the network, it may not reproduce the same result, but I think it sounds like this could be a much bigger in-depth thing than we can cover here. So I'd probably like to tackle it
Separately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's.
Yeah, then you can do kind of a deep dive.
Okay, so Andrew, do you want to reach out to Alex or Matt?
We're more than happy to be involved, Kathy, from the West Coast side, but honestly, we're the rollover PSAP trying to help the primary PSAP get this issue resolved for their case, and that would be Chris Stewart and Sarah at Delta.
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
Yeah,
said the wrong name.
The reason they've had us involved is just because they can't see any evidence of these calls hitting their systems, and Wesco can. So that was our role in it. So yeah, it's definitely seems to be a Delta issue, and we're just trying to assist.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll start that with Chris.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. See if we can get this resolved sooner than later. Okay, Tracy.
Next one on here, I'm going to have Mr. Winkleman help me out because we've had some internal conversations about some of the robocalls and is it because of camera trunks, and specifically we looked at Grand Junction, but I think it kind of extended statewide. So I'm going to see if Jeff has an update for us on that one.
Good morning, everybody. We did have a conversation on this internally about it, and what we found is that it's kind of strange that it's happening because on a technical level, it shouldn't be if everything has been migrated over to the ESInet, but we still want to work with the PSAP community as far as trying to negate this. What we're able to do is identify the trunks that needed the old camera trunks as far as the connections that were in there. Excuse me. If we want to see if it clears the issue, we would have to have them removed from the actual demarc location that would be going into the call handling equipment. So at this point, it would be the responsibility of the call handling equipment vendor to go in and remove those jumpers, or at least to remove bridge clips or whatever the connections that are left in to be able to take care of that. So for our sites for Lumen, we'd be able to go ahead and take care of that and put the request in for techs to go out. But for the other ones, we wouldn't be able to do that. So that would be the next step to be able to mitigate this.
Okay, any questions for Jeff? All right, so just to recap that, basically, that's going to be the responsibility of the PSAPs or agencies to have their vendors come out and take care of those connections, correct, Jeff?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. I can tackle the next one. It looks like ECATs don't really have an update for that. I know Kathy had a conflict today, so if anybody is still having billing issues on ECATs, please let her know. I think they've all been fixed. So if I'm not right, let's let Kathy know and she will get them fixed for you. I think I have 14 PSAPs left in the state that we're still pending documentation from, so that we can get them up and running on ECATs. Everybody else has gone through the training and it should be working. But I do have a couple dozen still that we don't have the IP information from.
All right. Thanks, Tracy.
Next one, I think Kimberly's on it and she's well aware. We're trying to assist them with their move that is taking place. And we do have a follow-up call right after this call today between Jeff and Kimberly and I. So I don't know, I don't have anything other than that unless Kimberly has specific questions for the whole group.
I don't. I look forward to our call after this call.
Okay.
Thanks.
Kind of the same for the Vail Pitkin. I know those involved are aware. The last piece of information I received was from Motorola that they were trying to work on a proposal for Brett and team. I don't know where we're at on that because it's something that would be between Motorola and the PSAP. We do have a call scheduled in a couple weeks to see if they came to an agreement on the equipment, or B, what our next steps should be between Lumen and Trado and the PSAP.
I was just going to call you, Brett, because I knew you were on. Go ahead.
Thanks, Kathy. And Tracy. We're still kind of in the same situation, but we have a proposal from Motorola. We're also looking at some opportunities to try something different with Lumen, but we're just still kind of figuring out the best route.
Okay.
But we're working on it, and yeah, in a couple of weeks we should have an answer for everybody.
Great.
Thanks, Brett.
The last one on there, I know has been on there for quite a while. It's conversations are still taking place more at a high level. We've provided some LOAs between different states. I know Daryl helped us out with the one New Mexico was looking for. It really still at a high level on our end. Nothing's really been assigned or decided, but we do see the need as well as the value in being able to transfer these calls across state lines. So on our side, it's looking more of a 2025 project. And it seems that we have several people interested in it now too. So hopefully there's more to come on that one as we move into 2025. And I think everything else on the spreadsheet, Kathy, is part of the closed items. I think the title's just in the wrong place because I know that we did work on the issue with some MSAGs getting changed and
right.
All
Yeah.
of that I think was wrapped up. So I just need to move them on the tracker for you.
Okay. I think the only question left was you guys were looking at, in regards to the reports that you do, you were still going to look into what it would take to be able to get those reports, but be drilled down to the agency level. So I didn't know if you'd had any conversations internally about that.
We have, that's the meeting I set up with you next week, I think.
Okay, great.
We will have Entrado on that call as well. And there are some options. They are billable items. So we thought we'd start with you and share what can be provided and then go from there.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
I look forward to talking to you next week about that.
Me too.
All right. Okay, I think we're done with the issue tracker then. Okay. Next thing we have is the improvement plan update. Daryl.
Thank you. Jennifer asked me to cover these next three items because she's listening to two different calls at the same time. But first on the improvement plan, I won't go through the whole history of this. There's actually over a decade getting up to this point, starting back in 2013 with the floods and fires proceeding that the commission did to look at resiliency and reliability in the 911 network. We've had 3 different rulemakings that got us the improvement plan process that was finally approved in a rulemaking in 2022. But the first iteration of that improvement plan process has been approved by the commission with multiple projects to be completed by CenturyLink to improve the reliability and resiliency of their network. The amount that was approved by the commission to pay for these items is $310.86 per concurrent session per month. And the state 911 surcharge, which I'll talk about in a little bit, has also been raised to reimburse the governing bodies for that cost. So the governing bodies will be paying that cost through a tariff amendment, which CenturyLink is required to file to include that $310.86. But the governing bodies will receive a commensurate increase in their state 911 surcharge distributions to pay for that. CenturyLink will be required to provide quarterly reporting to the commission on how much they have raised through the improvement plan amount that's in the tariff and how much they have spent on the projects. And if at any time it looks like the amount of revenue is significantly outstripping the expenses, that the commission has the authority under the rules to suspend or even terminate the improvement amount. More likely to suspend it if it's just a matter of giving CenturyLink a chance to catch up with its expenditures to catch up with the revenues. So that's something that will be starting next year. Those quarterly filings, I believe, will be filed in the same proceeding as the improvement plan itself. So anybody who has an NDA in that proceeding should be able to review those, or you can file an NDA if you haven't already in that proceeding. And when that starts, if anybody needs help doing that, let us know and we can help with that. I think that's all I really had to say on the improvement plan, unless anybody has any questions. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, just sort of a more general question about the related last mile diversity amount, which would be in addition to, as I understand it, the $310 and what is it, 86 cents?
Yep.
Do we have a sense if CenturyLink intends to include that last mile diversity charge in that same tariff amendment? Because that charge was not accounted for in the 2025 surcharge decision.
My understanding, and I think I actually read it in Jennifer's weekend update, or maybe I read it somewhere else, but CenturyLink, you can correct me if you have different information, but my understanding is that you are going to file 2 different tariff amendments, one with the $310.86 and one with the $24 and whatever cents it was for the ongoing maintenance. Tim?
Hey, good morning. Yes, that's correct. We filed, although I was just looking to see if it came through, and it doesn't look like it got filed yet. But yeah, we're going to file 2 separate tariff amendments. So one is for the 310, and then the second one separately would be for the $24.25, which would cover the ongoing last mile cost to provide, or the ongoing cost to provide the last mile diversity. So they'd be separate. Yeah.
Thank you. Just trying to put final touches on our 2025 budget when wondering if I need to try to account for that last mile charge, even though the surcharge did not address it.
Address it, the statewide surcharge, but it is such a small amount that it barely calculates to something as an impact.
Well, and Tim, I think I think one thing to consider too, and I'm guessing you've already decided what you're going to put in the tariff since you've said it's already in the process of getting filed. But one thing to consider too is when that charge will start, because you know, if this is an
These
ongoing.
would be, yeah, all these would be started in March 1st, 2025.
Okay.
Thank you, gents.
Yep.
Chris?
I just echo that what Matt just said for budget. If there's going to be a difference, if we could please get an update before the end of the month, because we turned in our budget, but if we don't have enough in our E911 to cover that difference for last mile diversity, and it's something that's going to start next year, we need to be able to tell the commissioners before the budget's finalized.
Daryl, are we completely done with the tariff proceeding, or do we have more steps that may push this back a little bit?
So the improvement amount was approved by the commission in the improvement plan proceeding. CenturyLink is still required to file a tariff to basically implement the amount that was approved by the commission. People could still protest that tariff. What the commission does with those protests, considering it's a protest over an amount that was already approved by the commission, I think would remain to be seen. The additional ongoing amount, the $25 and what did you say, Tim, 25 cents, I think it was, that was not approved by the judge in the improvement plan amount, because the judge basically said that the improvement plan process is for a temporary 2-year amount to be approved by the commission, whereas the $24 would be permanent. So that would be a separate, I believe that's why CenturyLink is filing it as a separate tariff. And that is something that could potentially go through, you know, a full litigation if it's protested. So yeah, there is still the potential for further delays on this.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Daryl? Jackie, go ahead.
Yeah, if there were complaints filed about the ongoing maintenance, the $25, would it stop? It wouldn't stop the process of starting the improvement plan. It would just put a hold on the maintenance, correct?
Well, I think to some extent that's a little bit up to CenturyLink. So CenturyLink could go forward with the other improvement plan projects, but my understanding, Tim, is that you wouldn't want to do the last mile project unless you know that you're going to get funding for the ongoing maintenance.
Correct. If the ongoing, and it's not ongoing maintenance, it's just the ongoing charges that were being charged by third-party carriers is what the delta is that we're falling short. But if the ongoing costs are not accounted for, then we would owe a piece of the project.
Well, I would think that would make it a little sticky with collecting the money, but that's just my thought.
Amount would change. The total of the network improvement plan would be reduced.
I mean, by collecting the additional cents in the statewide surcharge, if the improvement plan doesn't move forward, then we have more money being dispersed to the authority boards. Is kind of where my brain's going, and I'm just.
Oh, I see what you mean.
I don't know any answers to that, but
and the surcharge once it's set, that's the surcharge. The commission can only change that once a year. So, you know, even if an entire project got dropped out of the improvement plan because the ongoing costs were not going to be covered, we would not have a mechanism for dropping the surcharge from, say, 12 cents to 11 cents. So that's just extra money that the local governments will that the local governing bodies will receive.
Okay, thank you.
You know, and just as a reminder, if there is extra money that you receive through the surcharge, you are still required to only spend it on things that you're allowed to spend 911 funds on. So it has the same restrictions to it that the emergency telephone charge does.
All right, thanks, Daryl. Anything else? Are you good, Daryl?
Sure. So the next item was the commission rules update. The commission rules have been finalized by the commission. They were sent to the AG's office for a opinion. The AG's office said, yes, these are good. And they sent them to the Secretary of State's office, which has published them. And they are effective 30 days after the Secretary of State publishes them, which will be October 30th. So a day before Halloween, those new rules will be in place. I think probably a good thing for us to do would be to maybe do a short presentation for the next task force meeting, talking about what the biggest changes in those rules are. However, you know, probably the biggest change you're going to see going forward is that we have a new definition of what used to be called a basic emergency service outage is now called a PSAP service disruption, to get around essentially to be a little more accurate in our terminology, but also to get around disagreements that we've had in the past about what constitutes an outage for reporting purposes and investigation purposes and other purposes in the rules. Tim, go ahead.
Hey, Daryl, do you have an update on the other proceeding regarding the rules where we, the initial filing that was made to adhere to the previous set of rules? I know that's been sitting out there for a while as well. I wasn't sure if there's any movement that you're aware of on that one.
I'm not familiar with what proceeding you're talking about.
Proceeding that was originally suspended to comply with the rules that were enacted over a year ago. Number.
You have a proceeding? You're looking up proceeding number?
23 AL 04860.
Oh, that's your yeah, that's your tariff proceeding to comply with the Rule 2137 in the last rulemaking. Yes, that proceeding is still open. I've been told by the judge that she will be issuing something soon. Unfortunately, the judges get their plates filled up pretty high sometimes, and this proceeding has stayed open a lot longer than I would like, but it's a little out of my control. But I have been told that something will be issued soon.
Okay, great. Just would love to kind of combine all these things.
No, I'm with you on that. I wish that one was closed already.
Yeah, no worries.
Any other questions about the rulemaking that has been concluded and will be effective on October 30th? And like I said, I think there's probably a little too much to go over today on what the changes in that were, but I think we could probably put together a short presentation for the November task force meeting that goes over those changes.
That sounds good, Daryl.
And then finally, the 2025 surcharge decision. So the commission has set the surcharge rates for calendar year 2025. For starters, we changed I say we like I make the decision, but I don't. The commission changed the threshold for emergency telephone charge rates to $2.12. That is an increase to account for inflation. That means that a local governing body is allowed under the statute to set their emergency telephone charge rate up to and including $2.12 without filing an application with the commission. If you need more than that, you still can go higher than that, but you have to file an application with the commission for approval first. Whether or not you're above or below that threshold, if you do change your emergency telephone charge, you are required by statute to give 60 days notice to the carriers, and you are only allowed to have an effective date of February 1st or June 1st. If you're not going through the commission, if it's at $2.12 or below, you know, whether or not you comply with those effective dates and the 60-day notice period to the carriers is between you and the carriers. But that's just a warning to you that if they complain that you didn't follow the requirements in the statute, then it might delay your implementation. The next thing was the state 911 surcharge, which was going to be 9 cents. That's what we originally proposed. But then the Basic Emergency Service Improvement Plan application was approved by the commission. So we suggested to the commission that they raise that surcharge rate by another 3 cents, which we calculated would be sufficient to reimburse every governing body for the amount that they will be having to pay for that $310.86. And that was approved. So the state 911 surcharge rate will be 12 cents starting next year. We established a prepaid wireless 911 charge rate of $2.09 per transaction. The statute actually has a pretty strict formula in it that the commission has to use. We don't have a lot of leeway on that, but it's based on the average of all of the local emergency telephone charges plus the state 911 surcharge, which came to $2.09 once we adjusted it for that 3 cent increase to the state 911 surcharge. And then finally, there are 2 distribution formulas that have to be approved by the commission. One is for the state 911 surcharge, which is distributed based on the number of concurrent sessions that you have. And the other one is based on wireless call volume, which is based off of numbers that we receive from Intrado, essentially from CenturyLink through the Intrado user portal. We're hoping to switch to ECATs once everybody in the state has ECATs. We think that will probably be a little bit more accurate. It's a little hard to say, but we'll at least have that to be able to compare the 2 numbers and decide if it would be worth switching over to ECATs or continue using the IUP numbers. Does anybody have any questions about the 911 surcharge proceeding?
Daryl?
Yes.
I'm sorry to ask this earlier, but it kind of ties in. When they do the 911 surcharge, often there's rounding up that occurs because the smallest unit of charge is 1 cent.
Correct.
And I think we decided 1 cent raises something like $800,000. Do we know if there was rounding in this year's number and how that relates to the tariff charge that would accrue for the last mile diversity?
Yes, so there's always rounding because it never comes out to a whole cent. That would be amazing if it came out to a whole cent, but it probably never will. So we always round up to the next penny because we always want to reimburse you above what you're going to spend rather than beneath it. We calculated, and I have the decision in front of me right now, the total amount that you would need is, and this includes what you're paying CenturyLink now every month plus the $310.86 starting next year. The total amount that you would need for the full year for every governing body in the state is $9,045,187. The amount that will be raised by 12 cents is $9,790,976. So essentially that's a difference of almost $800,000, but not quite. So it's a little, that's why we had to do the 12 cents instead of 11 cents. 11 cents was almost enough to pay for it. So you're getting a lot more actually than you will have to spend paying CenturyLink for the $752 that you pay right now per month plus the $310. I think it's pretty safe to say that that will also cover the $24 if that gets implemented in 2025.
Thank you. And I'm driving. I don't know how to unmute or how to remute myself, but can somebody do that?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
I think that's the first and probably the last time that Joe has ever asked me to mute him. Any other questions on the surcharge decision? All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Anything else from you, Daryl?
Well, I just noticed I have the next item too, along with CenturyLink. So yeah, CenturyLink did file another tariff recently. This was filed near the end of the surcharge proceeding to add in additional services, including I3 conversion, geospatial routing, the transitional data management system or service, as well as text to 911 via the ESInet. The commission chose not to include those costs in their calculations for the surcharge, primarily because we knew there was a high degree of likelihood that the tariff filing would be protested. In fact, the 2 protests have been received, which means that it will now go through what we've unfortunately become accustomed to with the lengthy litigation process. The other reason was because the charges as proposed by CenturyLink in the tariff would not become mandatory until 12 months after the effective date of the tariff. And with the adjudication process that it's going to go through, they won't be effective until at least well into 2025, which means they would not be mandatory until 2026. But that process now will be going to the commission, the full commission next week. Will be looking at the protest letters and discussing whether or not to suspend the tariff from becoming effective. The proposed effective date was October 18th. So on October 16th, just a couple of days before that, the commission will be deciding whether or not to suspend the tariff and refer the matter to an administrative law judge. Typically, that is what the commission does in these cases when there are protest letters. And Tim, do you have anything to add to that?
One thing to add, I appreciate the summary there. Would it be helpful to start organizing a meeting to discuss this, or should we just wait for the commission to take action next week and then start moving forward with potential meetings, discussions?
Well, I think we would always encourage the company to meet with the other parties and try to iron out differences, answer questions, provide your explanation and your documentation ahead of time, because I think that makes the proceeding go a lot more smoothly. Whether you do it now or wait a week, I don't know that it makes that much difference, but we would encourage you to do that. And just like with the last couple of proceedings, I will be advisory, so don't reach out to me, but Jennifer will be trial staff, so she is free to participate in all of the meetings and discussions.
I'll just put maybe what I'll do is put a note out to either this group or maybe the task force group and see who's interested in having a discussion. I also want to add that I've got the costs ready to file in the proceeding. I'm working on some additional backup documentation for that cost study. So I may just file the costs and then come back in later with some of the additional backup, or I may wait for both. I'm trying to decide kind of how long it's going to take to put together some of this other information, but I do have the costs and I will be providing those very, very soon.
That'll be helpful.
All right, any other, oh, sorry.
No, that's all I had on that.
Okay. Any other questions for Daryl?
And I think I'm finally done. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. Okay, I'm going to move on. I want to just go back over the ring no answer topic that we have spoken about on several occasions, and I think Tracy alluded to it a little bit earlier. But Jennifer, can you scroll down? Thank you. So I had a little bit of a email conversation with Matt, and Matt, thank you for sending this to me. I appreciate it. And so we were talking about this, and we just want to make sure that everybody is clear on how the ring no answer works and what the timing is for each individual PSAP. So I just took a example PSAP A. And this, I just kind of used the same format of that report that Tracy had sent me, that I did share with this group. So if your no answer disconnect timeout is 15, and then the max invite to attempt is 2, Matt and I had email conversation, and the max invites to attempt is the limit on the number of times the ESInet will send a SIP session invite to the CHE for a call. Normally what happens, the call taker picks up the call, the CHE responds to the invite with a signal agreeing to open the SIP session for the call, and then the ESInet stops the timer. But this is interesting here and something to think about for your PSAP's rollover timing. So if the timer is set at 60 and the max invites is set at 2, the ESINet's going to try to deliver that call up to 2 SIP invites to the CHE in immediate succession, each lasting 60 seconds. So that adds 120 seconds of ring time for the caller, in addition to the ring time at the rollover PSAP. So I wanted to make sure that that was out to everybody, so everybody understands and can look at their timer and see what their rollover timer is set to. Kimberly, go ahead.
Thanks, Kathy. I just wanted to jump in there. Some agencies may choose to handle that rollover behavior at the CPE level. And so, for example, just to add additional complication to all of this, you may want to choose to have your timer set in a certain way. So then that way your CPE is performing various different rollovers. So for example, for us, we have a ring no answer at 19 seconds, and our CPE will roll it to the backup. So just additional conversation. This is great. People really need to know that behavior. When we took over Jackson County, they have 2 SIP sessions and they had 2 minutes per. So it was just ringing, and they were not understanding what was going on in that behavior. So definitely an opportunity to make sure that you know these settings and that they align with your CPE equipment.
And Kimberly, this is Rich Johnston. You'd be amazed at the variety of methodology across the country for this setting. Some are very small and some are incredibly large, depending on their own processes and procedures. So it varies greatly from what I've seen.
Yeah, and I don't think one size fits all. So it's great that we're able to customize it. I just encourage everybody to know. So make sure their CPE is not in conflict.
Thanks, Kimberly, and thanks, Rich. So if anybody needs that report again, I'm happy to reach out to Tracy, who will reach out to Entrado, I think, and get that report for us, or you can reach out directly to Tracy, and she should be able to get that for you. Tracy, am I correct in saying that? Sorry,
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to. Okay, thanks. All right.
Tracy, can we talked about sharing that additional piece here? Are we okay doing that now?
Yeah, is it something that is done or it can be done?
Yeah, it can be done. So, so we are now able to share that through the portal as well. So we made some configuration changes and updates to our code. We're right at time here, or else I'd show you. But if folks want to be able to see that through their portal, Tracy, would they reach out to you initially? Yes. Okay, so just reach out to Tracy. We'll get it configured over here on the Entrado side. Again, it'll show up, and I can maybe on the next call I can go through. We can set aside some time. It's real easy. Once you get into the portal, you just go down to one of the choices on the left, and it's there and available to you. It's a read only. You can't change it, but you can see what you're set to, and it only does give that what's up on the screen now. It would give the 15, but you have to know that it's always going to attempt twice. So if you look on through your screen and it says 60 seconds, it's actually 120 seconds because it's 60 per core.
Okay, great. That's good news. I'm glad that's in the portal. But again, everybody needs to reach out to get access, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So Tracy, probably be ready for some emails.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for all of that. That's great news. The next thing I have is the Cama Trunks issue, and I think Jeff is on, correct?
I am still on,
You.
yes. And,
Yay.
and we covered that earlier, I think, during Tracy's
Yeah.
report. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions or comments.
I think we're good.
Okay.
All right. Strategic plan update. We are still working on this. Our next meeting is today at noon. And so we're going through some red lines and also working on the executive summary portion of the plan and developing goals. So those conversations will take place today at noon. Any questions on that before I move forward? Because I know we're past 11, as I promised we would be at the beginning of the meeting. Okay. Follow up on the traffic study. Tracy advised that you would follow up on questions asked by Joe at the September meeting. Tracy, do you have anything on that?
I have just internal conversations that Jeff and I are working on that as an action item still. I don't have a clean answer.
Okay, that's fine. Appreciate it. So I will have that down again for next month.
Yes.
Okay. Next is public comment. Non-voting members are welcome to provide comments. Do we have any public comment? All right, hearing none. Then it looks like we are good to adjourn this meeting. Not too bad. It's 11:04. So the meeting is adjourned at 11:04. Those on the strategic plan committee, I'll see you in less than an hour, and everyone else, see you next month. Thanks.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.